So, my husband is a doctor, and when this incident occurred, I was living with him in the staff housing that the hospital provided us with. There are many options ranging from single bedroom apartments all the way to independent villas, depending on seniority. My husband had reached a level where we would be eligible for slightly better housing that his juniors don't normally acquire in the beginning. The juniors are given apartment style flats which are not as spacious and comfortable, but they do the job just fine. Now, we had a dog named Daisy, and she absolutely loved long walks ever since she was old enough to have the stamina. And this had become a habit for both Daisy and ourselves before my husband even availed the hospital staff housing program. We lived off campus before. We had also stayed in the quarters given to juniors when my husband was still making his way up at work, and while the living space was tiny, the apartments were situated in a place that had beautiful long winding roads that went through stretches of green, woody growth. Daisy used to immensely enjoy these walks. After some years, my husband was eligible for the senior quarters, and the two of us were excited. This was naturally a time of rejoicing, and though we had not actually visited the quarters, my husband could see it whenever he drove to work. I have also seen it a couple of times, but only from a distance. Though the view wasn't very clear from the street, we could make out that it was indeed not just bigger, but also appeared much grander in the setting. Despite being adults in our 30s, we felt the excitement of little children as the day of moving came. We were also very excited on behalf of Daisy because we knew that she loved changes and excitement herself. However, our joy wouldn't last long. After we moved in, we decided to take Daisy for a walk and explore the new surroundings. We were sad to see that there were no forest-like environment anywhere in sight. It was an extremely planned development, and though it was grand with considerably bigger apartments, it was bleak and it lacked the woody charm that we had gotten used to. In this new place, there was just one singular road that led to the entrance of the quarters. There were no trees or greenery in sight, and those with dogs here seemed content to walk around the gray concrete spaces that were all around. This came as a huge disappointment for us, but we somehow managed to live there for a few months. We couldn't take Daisy out the quarters for a longer walk as exiting the quarters led only to a busy street with even fewer trees. I'm not even exaggerating. Try as I might, I cannot recall any sight of greenery in this new area, which I now find in hindsight both curious and quite strange. Anyway, we decided to request a transfer back to the junior apartments. Sure, we would be giving up a much more comfortable home, but it was just not worth it for us. The management was thankfully understanding and empathized with us when we explained how our dog, and we, were missing the beautiful scenery in the junior quarters. Unfortunately, though, we had to wait for some time as they assigned someone else to our old home, and the only other apartment was under renovation. It was a shame, but we didn't have another option, so we agreed to wait. Now, something to keep in mind is that both the junior and senior housing had a very moving crowd. Well, simply put, most doctors and their families are frequently moved up the levels of housing quarters as they progress in their careers or their responsibilities change. It was rare for people to stay in the same housing option for more than a year or so. Most people didn't seem to have this same affinity for nature as us and wanted to upgrade as fast as possible. The community for both junior and senior housing was quite large, so it wasn't uncommon to see people moving in and out with trucks every month or so. Alright, so after close to a year of staying in the senior housing complex, we got the green light to move back to our old house. The person there had been transferred. When we arrived, we discovered that many of our former neighbors had also moved out. Those who were there thought that my husband was a new guy, who was given this junior quarters like how it usually goes. They had no idea that he was several posts senior to them. This was not a problem for us. Our happiness was to see our dog enjoy the walk in the woods, and now that we could do that again. Now, our dryer had stopped working for some time, and we hadn't gotten around to fixing it yet. This meant that I would take the clothes out of the backyard, sort of space where one would hang clothes out to dry. On one occasion, I had forgotten to bring the clothes back in, so the next day, when I went out to fetch them, I saw a few women giving me tough glances. I knew they were thinking about who we were, to come and dry our clothes out in the open like this. They were the newcomers here because I didn't remember seeing them earlier. Just as I guessed, one of them, who would become a giant pain in our necks, came and told me that if I had any manners, I wouldn't go around thinking the whole backyard was my personal space just to dry clothes in. From the tone of her voice, it was obvious that she was trying to say, "You're a newcomer here, watch it." It didn't occur to me that I should explain how we were much more senior to them because it felt quite petty. It didn't stop there, though. The next finger pointing came about our dog a few weeks later. The same Karen came up to me one day and said, "Small children are playing around here. Make sure that you don't walk your dog near them." This was, once again, complete BS. Daisy was an extremely friendly golden retriever and never harmed anyone. We kept having these random episodes like this that gave us the message, "You're a newcomer here. Don't take too many liberties. Know your place. You've just joined." She seemed completely oblivious that she and her husband were very much junior doctors for themselves. For my part, I wanted to give her a piece of my mind and explain that she was our junior, but my husband felt it would become a petty affair and not become of the image he had at work. I was surprised that Karen and her husband hadn't yet recognized my husband, considering he held a pretty important position. My husband told me to ignore them, and though I felt like saying something, I too thought that taking a Gandhian attitude was probably for the best. However, things took a turn for the worst after Karen confronted us, saying, "It seems your dog tends to pee in the elevator." Oh, what the hell? While we did use the elevator with our dog because we live on the 4th floor, it was definitely not our dog. However, I too had smelt something awful every now and then and had seen a man taking his grandchild, less than 5 months old, without a diaper, and a mother myself could instantly identify that it was not dog pee but a child. Thankfully, my husband was also with me and finally had a taste of the hostility that I had been experiencing from this Karen. My husband calmly explained that we take our dog thrice daily and that the elevator would have been stinking if it was our dog. In reply to this, he only got a cold face of suspicion. Fortunately, at that moment, a janitor was around and had been overhearing the entire conversation. He interjected and backed up my husband and said it was not our dog. I was wondering in my mind how far I could handle this hateful bias against us. My husband also saw how toxic the entire situation was, and a senior colleague of his, who he had confided about this situation, decided to help out and arrange for an independent villa that was also close to the beautiful wooded area. This was a nice thing because it was usually only the senior doctors that were assigned those houses. Now, it did come with some extra responsibilities. As part of his transfer, my husband had to take up the role of a supervisor for any issues related to the housing quarters of both the senior and junior sections. During one of these supervisory meetings, I accompanied my husband to the junior doctor's quarters. We took up our position in a room that served as an office to handle such general meetings, and my husband was introduced as the new supervisor. Among the many people present in that room, I could immediately spot the shocked face of Karen. After the meeting, she walked up to the person who had introduced my husband and asked him how he, a junior, was able to become a supervisor. Shouldn't this post be given to one who had crossed the senior level? I could overhear the man reply saying, "Oh, Dr. my husband's name. Why, he's definitely not a junior doctor. He's been with us for quite some time now, and is a senior at the oncology department. They had requested this particular accommodation earlier because they enjoyed the natural environment." He paused and asked her, "Hold on, were you the one who was complaining about their dog or something?" Oh no, it must have been someone else," she replied all flustered. At that moment, I made eye contact with her, and the expression on her face was simply priceless. What hurt me most during this entire episode was that they were being toxic just for the sake of being toxic. We'd done nothing to warrant the level of hate and dislike that she showed us. I guess some people enjoy abusing the little, perceived power that they think they hold and make life miserable for others. What if my husband was indeed a new person? I felt sad to think that this was the kind of experience that new people had when they moved in here, and my husband decided to address this. He organized a group, exclusively for new residents to share any feedback and seek help, a concept that should have been done there before, and ensured that someone unbiased and responsible would look into matters of discrimination, unfair treatment, and accusations. Daisy, for her part, loved the independent villa that we now lived in. It had a lot of areas for her to explore, and she particularly loved sleeping by the front gate and watching people go by. Thankfully, we never had to deal with any more toxic Karens here. This happened yesterday when I went to the supermarket to buy some groceries and a few other things that I needed. It took me around half an hour to find everything I needed, and I was going to check out when I remembered that I would need some whole wheat bread. As I was deciding which brand I wanted, an old lady approached me and asked me where she could find the rice. I'm sure she knew I didn't work there. I was wearing a black Led Zeppelin shirt with blue jeans and Converse sneakers, while the employees there wear orange and green shirts with black pants and black shoes. But since I was closer, I was the easier option. The rice was pretty close, so I took her there and helped her loading her cart. She wanted 4 or 5 kilogram sacks, which for some reason were sitting on high shelves. We chatted a bit about prices and quality before she left with her cart. I was considering picking some rice up for myself when I heard a nasally voice and felt a grab on my left arm, turning me around. "You finally done? Good. Now help me find these." There was this 50-ish looking lady handing me a list. From all the stories I've read here, I could easily recognize a Karen's uniform and haircut when I see one. I could have helped if it was an item or two, but the list was like 30 centimeters long, and her attitude wasn't exactly right. I looked at her with a puzzled expression, and she said with a really condescending tone while snapping her fingers, "Are you deaf? Hurry, I don't have all day." I wanted to keep things civil and pointed at the employee just a few meters away from us. "I don't work here, ma'am, but I'm sure that guy over there can." She cuts me off. "Bullcrap. I saw you helping that old hag. I know you want your break, but you can help me first. Hurry." I hate Karens. I hate finger snapping, and I wasn't going to waste any more time explaining myself twice to someone not willing to understand. So I just turned my back and I walked away. Of course, you guys can guess it wasn't the end. It's never that easy with a Karen, right? As you can imagine, she followed me. "Don't you dare turn your back on me. You'll help me, and you will help me now. Stop walking away. I'll have you fired if you don't help me." This part isn't exactly 100% accurate, as she was talking really fast and I wasn't really paying attention, but then it was when I saw it. You know those little mics those employees with cool voices use to announce prices, sales, and other things? So there was one left unattended near one of those scanning devices we use to check prices. Maybe a devil whispered in my ear because the whole idea formed at once inside my head when I saw that mic with the little blue light on. I just hoped it was on and connected. I turned to the lady and said, "Okay, ma'am, I can't help you, but I'll get someone to help you right away. All right? Is a manager okay for you? I'm sure he will be happy to lend you a hand." She looked appeased and agreed with that I win smile. I know I could have looked for an employee to help her, but it's not always when we have an opportunity like this. I went for the mic and tapped on it. Nothing. I take a look, and it was just muted. Before unmuting it, I asked her, "What's your name, ma'am?" "Karen. Karen Smugmore," she said, as if she was someone important. Yes, it's a fake name. I clear my throat, unmute the mic, and say the following line with the best professional voice I could. And not to brag, but I do have a nice deep voice if my friends can be trusted. "Manager Mauricio, please. Come to corridor 4A at your earliest convenience. Manager Mauricio, please. Come to corridor 4A at your earliest convenience. Ma'am Karen Smugmore, blonde, wearing white shirt and pink gym pants, needs help finding more enema kits and 4 packs of Vagisil deodorant." I would like to mention that this, including the manager's name, was fully improvised on the spot. It was great seeing her smug expression turn into I don't even know how to describe it. It was surprised, offended, mortified, and stunned at the same time. I smiled at her and said, "He'll be here soon. Have a nice day, ma'am." And left really fast before she could say anything. To keep myself from trouble, I made a really erratic way until the cashier at the furthest end of the supermarket, and on my way there, I could see some people probably found my little announcement at least entertaining. I paid for my stuff and I went home. I didn't see that Karen again, and no employee came after me, so guess I'm off the hook. Yeah, I know it was petty and probably uncalled for, but letting such an opportunity pass by would be a waste. Edit. To clarify, we don't speak English in my country, so I had to translate what was said to similar terms, and this made certain things sound unnatural, such as old hag. The literal translation of what the Karen said in this case would be just old woman, but it would lose the disrespectful pejorative tone she intended with the term that she used. My partner and I met and started dating a couple of months after we split from our respective spouses, and we were taking things slow. He had 2 young kids and wanted to consider them. After a year, my partner planned for me to meet his kids after Christmas break. Although most of his friends knew about me, we kept the relationship quiet and off social media. I asked that he tell Linda about me before the meeting and give her the option to meet me first, as I was going to be in her kids' lives. I thought it was respectful and would make her feel more comfortable. My partner messaged Linda that he had been dating someone for a while now and wanted to introduce me to the kids. Linda asked, "What's a while?" He told her when we started dating and it had been almost a year. Her response, "I am absolutely floored that you've been dating someone for a year and you didn't tell me." We had a bit of a laugh over her response, as it wasn't really her business who he dated. This was more of a courtesy because I was going to be around the kids. My partner told me at least he waited until after the marriage was over to pursue a relationship. I guess she expected that my partner would always be single. These expectations always went one way with her. She never mentioned her dating life or seeing anyone to my partner. She even moved in with kids and didn't tell him. She figured their 6-year-old would do so. It ended with her saying that she didn't want to meet me yet, and that it was awkward for her. She, of course, never returned the favor. She introduced the kids to a guy that she was dating within 3 to 4 months, not long after.